I'm Helen.
I'm Miss Sinclair.
And I'm Edison. Y'all better grab your extra large popcorn. We are in the thick of things with great films.
I am open and positive.
I don't like it.
Let's throw on these boxing gloves.
Let's do it.
Let's fucking do it.
Welcome to Talk Movie to Me, a weekly podcast where we do a deep dive on a new release that's just hit theaters or streaming. I'm Helen.
I'm Miss Sinclair.
And I'm Edison, and this week we are throwing on some workout gear and taking you for a wild ride through the neon-lit streets of 1989 for writer-director Rose Glass's sophomore film, Love Lies Bleeding. A genre-bending film that's sort of like the twisted love child of Romeo and Juliet and, I don't know, Scarface. This film stars Kirsten Stewart as Lou, a gym manager with daddy issues, as well as Katie O'Brien, who flexes her acting muscles as Jackie, a vagabond bodybuilder with gigantic anger issues. Rounding out the cast is Jenna Malone, Dave Franco, and David Carradine. I mean, Ed Harris. So, picture this. Lou meets Jackie, sparks fly, and before you know it, they're deep in an intense and chaotic romance. But hold on to your spandex, folks, because things take a turn for the seriously messed up. We're talking secret family weapons dealers, hallucinatory murders, rotted teeth, bashed-in skulls, and enough steroids to make Schwarzenegger blush. Just when you think things couldn't get any crazier, along comes Daisy, Lou's overly stalker friend with a major crush and a knack for blackmail. And let's not forget about dear old dad, paying off cops and tossing dead bodies off cliffs. With enough twists and turns to make your head spin faster than a protein shake blender, Love Lies Bleeding is the kind of film that leaves you questioning your own sanity. But hey, isn't that what we love about cinema? The chance to escape reality and dive headfirst into a world where love, lies, and a whole lot of blood make for one hell of a cocktail. So grab your popcorn and prepare to be thoroughly entertained, baffled, and maybe just a little traumatized. Love Lies Bleeding asks the question, if roses are red and violets are blue, are steroids and violence the secret to love true?
Ooh, good.
First impressions, Helen.
Yeah, the way this film opens, we're following a woman walking into a gym, a sort of like industrial gym, and there's some cool 80s music playing, and I couldn't help but think of the opening to Roadhouse from last week. It's a very similar opening, you know, following someone walking into a kind of different athletic atmosphere. But yeah, that was my very first thought was, oh, this is reminding me of Roadhouse, even though I know that this is not really going to be anything like Roadhouse. And then right away it was like, oh, it's very stylized, which I was like, excited about because to be honest, I knew very little of this movie and I wanted to sort of keep it that way before I went into it, so I went in blind.
Same for me, actually. I didn't really know anything about it either, and when we were walking into the theater, there was one of those big boxes of 3D glasses out front. Oh. Like, you know, whatever was playing there before. And I thought, wait a minute, is this film 3D? No. And so then we go and sit down and it starts. And the opening shot is sort of like flying up out of the ground into this night sky. And the stars kind of were almost like 3D. And I literally was like, wait a minute, should I have those 3D glasses? And then we descended to the gym. And it's like so sweaty and muscly and hot, and you could like feel the heat and stickiness. And again, I was like, is this meant to be 3D though?
I actually think this movie could be in 3D.
Totally.
It would be great in 3D.
Yeah.
It would be actually amazing.
Blood
in 3D.
splatter, sweat.
Bulging muscles.
Yeah, the bulging muscles.
Yeah.
Like truly, this needs to be converted for
That's actually
into
really
3D for like the cult viewings that it will undoubtedly have in the future.
Yeah.
So that was my first impression. How about you, Sinclair?
Yeah. Okay, well, I saw this a couple weeks back, and I was kind of rushing to the theater because I had to see this at Scotiabank, and I remember Helen has missed like the beginning of so many movies this season because she's like, there's no trailers.
There's just not as many as like Varsity and other theaters.
Well, I mean, I stopped. I got a sub.
Again.
I was like, oh, Helen warned me, but this is my fault. Like, I got my sub. I took my time, and I got in there, and there was trailers. I was on time.
I
mean, so then I was kind of like, is Helen making this up?
No. I'm not.
And then we saw Immaculate together just like a week ago or so, and there were trailers for that too.
Yeah, I never said there wasn't trailers. I just said that at Varsity it's a solid 15 minutes, and at Scotiabank it's only 10. You don't have that little 5-minute buffer. Okay.
Well, I made it there, and I immediately liked the style of this as soon as it started. And I did kind of laugh because we've done a lot of movies with sweaty bodies this season.
Yeah.
Like big, ripped, sweaty bodies. We did Iron Claw,
Yeah.
Roadhouse, now Love Lies Bleeding, like a lot of bodies. But yeah, I was just in the mood for this. I wanted to watch something gritty and stylish and like even a little bit sleazy. Like I was really
Or a
excited
lot
to
of
see
it.
this. Yeah, but I've been really anticipating this movie since, you know, it started getting like a lot of buzz around it and everything. And I really loved Saint Maud, the other movie by Rose Glass. So
Yeah.
I was really excited for this. Yeah.
Well, why don't we jump into storytelling? I'll just start out by saying you had just mentioned Immaculate, which of course we did the episode on last week.
Yeah.
And where that film failed is exactly where this film totally nailed it for me.
Right.
From a storytelling perspective, I really appreciate that this film is truly like a real mishmash of genres and styles and tones. And oftentimes filmmakers try to do that and fail, like with Immaculate. But this one somehow manages to be like a gritty gangster movie and a romantic thriller and an absurdist body horror and like pulpy neo-noir comedy. Like it's fun. It's all of these things together and it works. And I just, when that happens, it's so impressive.
Yeah. Well, and funny enough, we mentioned Saint Maud last week in comparison to Immaculate.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I actually didn't realize it was Rose Glass who did this until after, because again, I like really went in blind. And if I had seen those movies back to back, I wouldn't have, think it's the same filmmaker. Because Saint Maud is not like this movie. Like there are common themes, but in terms of style and what this, like what you said as a sin, where it's like really blending different genres, like Saint Maud, it doesn't do that. It's doing something else, but like this is a very unique film.
I love that she has two totally different settings
Yeah.
for these two features that she's done. Like you have this religious, very repressed, movie with Saint Maud, and it's so much more of a slow burn.
Yeah.
And then you have this one, which is just bodies,
Spontaneous
and
combustion,
sex and blood. I do think that there's similarities in terms of the psyche of the female
Yeah, for
characters
sure.
and maybe
Yeah.
the delusion sometimes in it. You could kind of relate it back to Saint Maud. But I just love that she's done two completely different settings for her films. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of different genres of films, this is being classified as, it is all those things that you mentioned, Edison. It's especially a neo-noir. That's a word that's being thrown around for this. Basically, neo-noir is a revival of like the classic noir films. We've done some noir films on the podcast before. That was a really big film genre in the 1940s to the 1960s. And a lot of themes of crime, femme fatales, really morally questionable characters, and just stylistically, lots of shadows, like beautiful black and white. Neo-noir basically took a lot of those themes and style and put it in a modern time. Also added a lot of splash of color to it as well. A good example of like a recent neo-noir is really John Wick. That's an action film, but it also has the neo-noir style. No Country for Old Men. And also Drive. The style of this reminded me of Drive. I love that like neon soaked color palette. So cool. Some inspirations for this film. You guys will like this one, Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, I can see that.
The color of that, but also the dark subject matter.
Oh yeah, the grit. I can totally see that.
My king, David Cronenberg, his film Crash, that erotic thriller. Showgirls, Helen, your favorite movie of all time.
I know. When I saw that, I was like, oh, yes. Actually, yes.
Which you could really see. You could really see that influence. And then there's a great film called The Night Porter. It's from 1974, starring Charlotte Rampling. And a very stylistic film, but very fucked up, questionable power dynamics, like sexual power dynamics, which you see that in this film as well.
That was a theme in this film that I really thought was explored really well. Was this like theme about power and control and the different ways that people kind of explore that. So we see them all trying to exert their like dominance over each other. Even like Lou trying to kind of keep Jackie under control, and then her father obviously like trying to fix everything, clean up the mess, and keeping everybody under control. Daisy blackmailing Lou. It's like how do people wield power and the lengths that people are going to go to sort of get it or maintain it or gain control of another person. I thought that was really interesting in this.
Oh, and Dave Franco.
Yeah.
And
Franco,
really gross character.
What a pig
physical
dog.
control over poor Jenna Malone.
Yes.
Oh, he's like ultimate pig dog in this.
Ultimate pig dog dirtbag. Just awful.
Ugh.
Yeah. And that's so like I don't see him as that, like he doesn't often play that type of character.
He's like
you know what I mean?
he's so cute and like charming.
I know. He's
Yeah.
likable.
It was a good role,
yeah.
Something I really appreciated about this movie is that it took me to places that I wasn't expecting, story-wise. Like, I couldn't have predicted how this was going to play out.
100%.
And in the middle of watching it, I thought to myself, how refreshing to watch a movie that isn't a remake of an existing story, that isn't a superhero movie, and isn't super formulaic, and is good, right? Like, it made me so happy for, you know, modern filmmaking and storytelling in general, that we're seeing something so unique and original.
It also is kind of, I think, poking fun at superheroes too. Like, she had a lot of like Hulk qualities.
Yeah, true.
To her.
Oh yeah.
That I feel like they were kind of taking from that Marvel world a little bit and using that and kind of poking fun of it a little bit.
I can see that.
It was very Hulk.
It was very, very Hulk.
Totally.
And I agree with you so much, Helen. Like, the film sort of takes a dramatic turn at one moment when they're in the hospital, and then Jackie leaves the hospital and goes, right, to sort of get revenge. But when she got out to the truck and starts to drive away, I literally turned to the person I was seeing the movie with, and I was like, okay, where is this film going? And I had no idea. And then especially as we get further along, really no idea. And it was just really exciting.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, you know, you don't even need a really complex story when it comes to this genre at all. But they still manage to make the story and the characters feel interesting to watch, because really you could just watch this movie for the style and for the wild ride of it and for the, you know, hot bodies of it. But I like that it made every aspect of it pretty fleshed out. I said fleshed. It was a pun and I didn't even mean it. But
well, but the fact that it is also a queer love story, and it's taking a lot of typically masculine tropes and making them more femme, that I found really cool, because the fact that this is a queer story is just one aspect of it.
Yes.
As opposed to it being like, go see this queer movie that like, it's amazing that it's queer. It's like, no, this is just like, that's just a part of it now, you know, like it's opening up more possibilities of just bringing in queer stories into so many different types of films, right? It doesn't just have to be a queer movie because that's a novelty. Like, it's becoming not a novelty in a good way. Yeah, you know?
I agree 100%. And it's not telling you like, oh, like this is a queer film. It just is.
It just is. Yeah,
and
exactly.
it is coded in that way. Like, the characters are unmistakably queer if you clock that, but it's just what's cool about it. This film is hot.
Yeah,
Like, that's what
yeah.
I really liked about it. I mean, I'm a gay man. There's
Yeah.
no one in this film that I'm gonna go for.
Not
right?
Ed
So-
Harris.
Ed Harris, yeah.
That didn't do it for you?
No, but this film is hot. It's erotic. It's carnal. It's lusty, and I like that. I actually relate it. It's like it's about that overwhelming chemistry where you just have that like physical connection that's so intense it totally overrides your brain and anything. Oh, what red flags? And
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
go for it. And we've all sort of
Lots of red flags there with Kristen Stewart. I mean,
Oh my
yeah,
lord.
yeah.
They're all red flags. Every single character.
Yeah.
Every single character in this film is an absolute nightmare who you just hope to never run into in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like,
But-
oh, it's okay. You're murdering everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't actually expect there to be so much body horror in this.
no, me
That was a
neither.
pleasant surprise. For me. I
Sinclair, of course.
was like, ooh, okay. I found the body horror so good in this.
Yeah.
Just even the
Yes.
horrors of steroids
Yeah.
and basically your body being out of your control and transforming and also changing you and you being completely taken over by that. There's that scene where she is in the competition on the stage
Yeah.
and doing those poses and
Yeah.
there's something beautiful, but there was something so scary
And
about
grotesque
that and
a little bit.
grotesque.
Yeah.
And
It was because you could see her face and you knew what was happening in her inner world in that moment.
yeah, and
because
the fever
like
dream of it all.
yes, her body itself and the choreography up until it went sideways was just like it was gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I found that to be just so unsettling, and I was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that is body horror. That is really,
Yeah.
really, really great.
Well,
And just the unexpected like horror like when
Yeah.
she goes and grabs Dave Franco and smashes his
gore,
face into
yeah,
the
yeah.
and his jaw just like flopping around.
I know.
Like the audience was shrieking. It was but also kind of cackling.
Yeah.
Because it's so unexpected that you were just like, what has just happened?
I know. Well, and then you
Yeah.
get that moment where Kristen's stuffing his body in the trunk, and then she sees the pack of cigarettes, and she considers taking them.
Yes.
And then she's
so
like, no,
good.
quit. You know, like what a funny moment in the middle of this like insane scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did have to come home and Google, can you hallucinate if you're on steroids?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
and?
wasn't sure how, like, it felt like such an acid trip, right? But I was like,
Yeah.
does steroids actually do that to you? And it can. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a steroid induced psychosis that can happen.
Wild.
And just outburst of anger and
Yeah.
violence and
Yeah.
the aggression of it. And
But I love the way they depicted it too, like her looking at the sign and it's moving. You know, it was not so in your face acid
Yeah.
trippy, but it was like, ooh, disconcerting. Like the eyes get really big and the
it
faces
was
look really
like,
weird.
it reminded me of like almost like when a character turns into like a werewolf
Mm-hmm.
in a movie. Like that physical change, that
Yeah.
beast change.
Mm.
You know, the cracking of bones and
Yeah.
the veins and oof. Yeah.
And I couldn't help but feel like, especially when she's in the competition, but anytime really that her body started changing, it felt very Black Swan to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I
when
can totally see that.
Natalie
Yeah.
Portman's character is becoming the swan and feathers start coming
Mm-hmm.
out, you know? And then, yeah, we get that incredible moment where she's puking, but then in her own mind, she
Oh my
births
God.
Kristen Stewart out of
You
her
know
like
what?
weird vagina mouth.
I don't need
And, like,
to see any more like mouth birthing since seeing Men. I
I
I'm
was
like,
gonna
sorry.
say,
I don't
men.
need to see any more birthing
I
from
know.
random body parts.
But,
But
I
it
love
was so good. Like
Yeah.
This one
Eh,
was better than Men. The Men
100%.
birthing,
Yeah.
that scene, it's as well. It was just so unexpected. Like this film just takes you in places, and
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm so glad that I saw this in a theater because there were a lot of people in the theater. Actually, like it was probably, I mean, it was maybe 25% full, but there
Okay.
were enough people there where you really were feeding off each other in these
Yeah.
reactions. And people were laughing. People
Yeah.
were like
Yeah.
gasping. People were uncomfortable. Were like doing this sound. It was really cool, that scene. And like we have to talk about the end when
Yeah.
she turns in again with the body when she just turns
Bonkers
into a
ending,
giant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just rips
Yeah,
Ed Harris
but I
apart.
kind of love that because it did remind me of the ending of Saint Maud, where you're like, is this in her head? Is Kristen Stewart also seeing this because she's like blinded by this love for this person? Like this
Right.
person is just like larger than life. Is she feeling this way, or does she physically actually become that?
I know.
It's kind of some fun magical realism
Totally.
at the end of the film. I mean, I thought it was completely weird, and I did kind of laugh, but at the same time, I thought, okay, I buy it. Sure.
I
I
thought she
loved
was.
it.
I thought she was gonna
Yeah.
start masturbating with Ed Harris's body. I thought she was just gonna shove him up her
well,
giant vagina.
Would you want him in there though, Helen?
Hell no. With that mullet, no, thank you.
That's a skullet, Helen. That is
Oh,
a
sorry,
skullet.
skullet. I'm sorry.
Whatever it is, it's got to go.
We do get a little foreshadowing to that moment. I don't know if you noticed. There's a point
Yes.
where we see the black and white film.
Oh, no.
Did either of you clock that?
No.
I don't think so.
We see a black and white movie on TV of a giant man picking up like a little man.
Oh, okay.
I did not see
And
that.
I don't know what movie it was. I was Googling it when I got
Yeah.
home to make the reference, but I couldn't find it.
I thought you meant the foreshadowing of the giant because earlier on when after she pulverizes Dave Franco,
Yeah.
she's huge
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
moment too. And I was like, whoa, not quite like, 4 stories high, but
Yeah. Yeah, there's little nods to it. You kind of feel like it's happening throughout
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
she is getting like physically larger and larger. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you do kind of know he's going to get his, justice.
comeuppance.
Yeah,
For sure.
comeuppance. Can I say one little thing about the title, Love Lives
Yeah.
Bleeding?
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay, well, this is a plant,
Oh.
the Love Lives Bleeding plant, and it represents hopeless love or hopelessness. So I guess in the Victorian era, people would send each other flower arrangements that were codes
Oh.
things. So different arrangements would be different things that you would send to your love or whatnot. But basically, this flower is a flower that can get very tall in size, and it also
Okay.
has long cascading red flowers, and it looks like blood coming
Looks
from a
like blood.
wound.
Wow.
So kind of cool,
That is really cool.
you know?
They found love in a hopeless place.
Edison, did you know that when you wrote your little roses are red, violets are blue?
I did not.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, I did
What
not.
a coincidence.
Why don't we jump into performances?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of really good performances in this
Yeah.
for me. I thought basically everybody was completely aligned in the type of film that they were in. They obviously had great direction. And we're going to start with Kristen Stewart because she is, the star. She's the reason why this film is being made probably or funded. And I loved her in this, but mostly I just love that she did this film.
Yeah.
I just love that she is a genuine movie star, incredibly famous around the world, and obviously has enough fuck you money to do whatever the hell she wants, and that she's bold enough to do precisely what she wants. And that it's this crazy off the wall, sexy queer film. When she was flirty at the beginning when they first were meeting one another, I was like, I'm seeing Kristen Stewart here.
Totally.
She's revealing so much, and it
Yeah.
was just so cool. So cool.
Yeah. I'll correct something that you said.
Oh.
Rose Glass got a huge budget from A24 after the success of Saint Maud. So it wasn't
okay.
actually Kristen Stewart that got this funded.
Okay,
But Kristen Stewart has said that Saint Maud is one of her favorite movies. So as soon as Rose Glass came to her, she was like, absolutely, I really want to work with you. But yeah, I think she's great in this. And I just love the evolution of Kristen Stewart as an actress. I think
kinda
she's
wild.
I know, truly. It could have gone
Yeah.
so wrong for her.
Yeah.
She's so interesting.
But
and
she
she's so
also is a
unique.
lot more versatile than people give her credit for, I think.
Yeah.
Look,
She
she's done
played Diana.
Yeah.
she did Spencer, and
Yeah.
she also works with daring directors. She just did
Yeah.
Crimes of the Future with David Cronenberg. So she did that body horror, and now she's moving into this genre as well. I think this is like the perfect movie for her, where she is right now and who she is right now.
Yeah.
It is. It's a great part for her. And I watched a Berlin Film Festival Q&A with her and Rose Glass, and she's just so incredibly gracious. Like, watching her speak, I was like, oh, you're lovely. Like, seem like such a lovely person. And I also, in watching this and watching her, the Q&A, I was like, oh, I would probably fall in love with you if I was working with you, or if I were like in contact with you. Like, I get it. She's got an energy.
I get it too, totally.
Yeah.
And also, though, like Katie O'Brien, so she plays Jackie. Now, I recognized, but I couldn't place it. And then when I looked up after, I saw that she was in Ant-Man and she was in The Mandalorian. So I have seen her before.
Oh.
But they were tiny little roles. So it's not like I would have. This is definitely like a breakout role for her.
Yeah.
But when she came on, I was just like, man, she is hot. Like, if I was a lesbian, I think I would be like obsessed with her.
Yeah.
Like, her body was just like so strong, but it wasn't just that was so perfect. It was like the way she carried herself and just her attitude and confidence. She was fantastic.
There was a part of me as I was watching it that was like, has she acted before? Is this a first time acting situation? And in my head, I was like, she's doing pretty good, if that's the case. There was a couple moments where I felt like a little bit unconvinced, kind of when she gets all like steroid ragey, that I was like, oh, I don't know if this is totally landing for me.
Well, the body acting was very good. We talked about the body acting with Iron Claw, with Zac Efron. I feel like she had a similar thing where she was very good with her body and the camera and the relationship between the two.
Yeah, for sure. I actually think my favorite performance in this movie is Anna Baryshnikov, who played Daisy.
Oh man, yes.
I know. You really hate
loved her.
Yeah.
Like, she's like,
you just really hate
repelling,
that character.
but like I just wanted to watch everything she said and did because it's such a specific character.
Do you know who she reminded me of? It reminded me of the woman who plays Rita Skeeter in the Harry Potter films. The like journalist, because it's like she's always setting you up and she's leading you towards exactly what she wants you to. And it's like, I love that this character Daisy was so unpredictable. Like, she was just so obsessed and stalker and scary, but then she also realized at a certain point when she had the power and she had the leverage, and she caught Lou in a little trap, and you could see her like getting all excited about it. Like, I thought that was such a good performance. She was captivating, but those teeth.
I loved the teeth. That was probably one of my favorite parts. I love when, like, there were a lot of details in this movie that you don't see in other movies. Like, a character like that would not have beautiful white teeth. She would have those teeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, so often filmmakers don't go that extra mile to put that detail in there. I loved how disgusting her teeth were.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we jump into technical then? Because I think that is definitely something where this film totally worked for me too, was in the attention to detail, like you say.
Yeah.
The look of it, it was so 80s. Also, one of you mentioned earlier about the color, and I totally had that in technical. Whatever they did with the color grading in this film completely worked for me. The colors were really saturated. It was like vintage. I just loved it.
Yeah, the 80s of it all, the hair. There's a lot of hair moments happening.
Kristen Stewart's mullet, Ed Harris's skullet.
Yeah.
I gasped when he came on. I was like, wow, that's a choice.
I know.
yeah.
I know.
A skullet is a choice.
Yeah, and
He was great too. We forgot to. I kind of skipped over him in performances, but he really works as this like terrifying villain.
He's very scary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the clothing, like, it really leans into it. It's not just like a nod to the 80s. It's like you're diving into the deep end of the 80s.
Yeah.
Even Jenna Malone's hair, like, she looks absurd in this movie.
Yeah, there was never any question of where it took place, and every single bit felt authentic. It was like dirty and grimy. The gym was gross. Like, everything was just that. It just felt like truly lived in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they're wiping down those machines?
They ain't wiping down those machines.
Hell no. Did you see Kristen Stewart pulling that clogged toilet?
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
so
God.
gross.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Well,
loved
yeah, even that scene at the beginning, I was like, wow, okay, we're going for it. We're right in a toilet right now.
Yeah. I absolutely loved the music and the sound in this movie. Like, that was a huge highlight for me. Clint Mansell was the composer, and funny enough, he also was the composer for Black Swan.
Oh, interesting.
And a lot of those musical cues, when like her steroids kick in, it really did make me think of Black Swan. So I wonder if it sounds similar. I imagine it does. And then Simon Astle was the music supervisor. The 80s music in this was incredible, and it wasn't like notable songs, at least for me. Like, it was 80s songs I'd never heard before that were so atmospheric, and evocative.
Yeah.
Well, that was smart, right? Because again, like, where they put their budget, and
Right.
they still were able to totally convey exactly what era we were in with the music choices, but without having to spend all that on getting those rights. Also, in terms of sound, I thought the sound design was fantastic. And this, like, the squelching in the body horror bits, and when the muscles would expand, like, there was like sound, and it was so
felt it.
grotesque. Yeah. Okay, well, what was the last word on Love Lies Bleeding for you, Sinclair?
I thought this was so much fun. It was grimy. It was sweaty. So much good body horror in this. Great performances, mullets, skullets. It's just such a wild ride. So much fun. See this in the theater. It's just such a great watch. Helen?
Yeah, I really loved this watch as well. I do believe this is going to have like some cult classic status for sure, modern day classic. And it just makes me excited to see what else Rose Glass does, because I think she's a really interesting filmmaker with a very unique vision and unique voice. What about you, Edison?
Yeah, I went into this also kind of blind. I had no idea really. I did see the trailer, but like no idea really what it was about. And it took me places I absolutely could not expect. I was really, really pleasantly surprised by this. I didn't really have any expectation of whether I would like it or not, but I loved it. It was fun as hell. It was outrageous, like completely audacious and bold. And I appreciated that so much. And I agree 1,000%. Like, see this in the theater. Really, like, this isn't a film that is going to have a big box office, obviously, but I really would love it to have enough support. You know, I want people to see it so that it encourages that there is actually a market for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good. And just love Kristen Stewart in this.
Well, this has been another episode of Talk Movie to Me. If you would like to get in touch with us, our email is talkmovietome@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram @talkmovietome. Rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find season 7 episodes on YouTube as well at Talk Movie to Me podcast. Yes, Edison, you forgot. I was.
Oh my God, I literally
Those
forgot to put,
episodes up on YouTube.
I forgot to put last week's episode up.
It's okay.
Edison has one job.
I'm Helen.
I'm Miss Sinclair.
And I'm Edison.